Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to our podcast. You are here watching the Intuitive Creator Spotlight, a playlist where I invite amazing guests who transform their lives and now are on a mission to help other people transform their lives too. I am Stella, your host, and today I have here with me the amazing Christina. She is a spiritual alignment coach, she is an energy healer, a conscious parenting coach, and an author. She helps people tune into their inner guidance and live in alignment with who they truly are. Hi, Christina, and welcome to this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a joy to be here. And thank you for the beautiful introduction. That was wonderful.
Oh, it is my pleasure, and I can't wait to hear more about your story and your journey because I know it is going to inspire so many people who are listening to this episode. So I know that your journey is filled with so many synchronicities and divine guidance. What was the point when you felt like you solidified your own trust in your inner wisdom?
That's a great question. Ooh, I love it. You just dived straight in. Um, it's an interesting thing because listening to your inner wisdom, I always compare it to stretching a muscle. You have to train it, and the universe is always this wonderful source of food for that inspiration, where it will always back you up when you actually say, this is what I want. So after a lot of tiptoeing through of kind of stretching that muscle and doing everything from I'm going to just trust my intuition and turn a corner when I feel like I should turn a corner, and all of a sudden finding something beautiful and going, oh, thank you, universe, that was a great validation for that, stretching into that comfort zone of listening to my own intuition. The greatest validation was when I followed my intuition to get on a plane from Canada and come to the UK, and ended up to actually, I knew I was very likely following the call of my soulmate, and I ended up meeting my husband very quickly, and we were engaged within 3 weeks. So there was this definite, and again, the universe provided all of these wonderful, I like to call them frying pans to the head, to basically say, yes, you are right. Yes, this is what this is. It When you work with the universe and when you're listening to that intuition, when you make that decision to really listen to your heart rather than the noise outside of you and that very boring thing of logic, when all of a sudden you find that comfort zone of really trusting that intuition, then the universe always quickly backs you up. So there's always this process of validation within that, as long as you're looking for it. And don't get into your head too much. But yeah, I would say meeting my husband was definitely this magical aha moment. Oh my goodness, this is actually what this is, and listening to this is, I can function in a field of magic and synchronicity,
Mm.
and I can listen to Archangel Michael, and I can actually trust what I feel. I'm not crazy by the ideas that are flowing through my head. This is actually
Mm.
real. Yeah.
And it kind of takes you to like a different reality because you've been living your life in a particular way,
Yep.
following the all the rules that are in the society and what other people expect of you. And then when you suddenly choose to listen to that voice, the inner voice, which doesn't give you evidence,
Yep.
it just tells you trust, and then you follow that. It is very interesting for sure. Did you have any signs or dreams to tell you, hey, just take your bag and go to the UK?
It was It was probably, well, there was a space between, a space before where I was like tiptoeing on the decision. So yes, I was kind of like listening to my intuition. I would maybe try to go on a few dates. I had this inner calling that, there was a soulmate out there, and it had to start with my decision. And this is what I've really, as I've tiptoed back, like this was 24 years ago now. And at that time, nobody was talking manifestation. No one was talking about the secret. No one was talking about the power of your thoughts. It was a very kind of vague time. So I was getting the intuition of there's someone out there for me. And I tried to connect with other people, and I tried to, you know, follow the should path of, oh, well, you date. And then all of a sudden, it was the decision where I went, no, I know that there's someone out there for me. That it was like a window cracked open. And then it was when I became public. So I remember my boss hooking me up once with a guy and her being like, oh, you'll really care, like you'll really like each other. And I remember like scheduling a date with him and then calling him up before it happened. And, I'm sorry, you're not the one. And he was so upset. He was like, what do you mean I'm not the one? He's like, how do you know that? We haven't even had coffee together. I'm like, I just know. And it was the actual decision and vocalization of saying, I am going to listen and put my faith in this
Mm,
rather than this, that then all of a sudden everything started to validate. It was like the angels just kind of went, ha ha, she's on board. And then with
mm,
that, all of a sudden, I would have different signs. So again, I mentioned Archangel Michael was this kind of, beckoning kind of energy force. And I didn't know what Archangel Michael was. It just popped in my head. I was like, oh, that's what this is. And suddenly I was seeing the name Michael everywhere. And once I decided, oh, I like when you asked if before when I decided to go over to the UK, if there was like a sign, literally the day I was talking to a group of people, I literally had no idea I was planning on going to the UK. I was sitting with a group of people. We were all in a meeting together and they were like, oh, well, what are your plans after this project? And I went, oh, I'm going to go over to the UK actually. And my best friend turned to me, she's like, you're what? And I was like, yeah, I have no idea what I just said, actually. I was like, I literally have no idea where that came from, but I guess I'm going over to the UK. I'm going to go backpack.
mm.
That very day, a whole bunch of funding for another project came in and I could afford to go. And it meant that so it was those types of things. It was the ability to say yes
Mhm.
when you get the nudge. So there's always a dance. We want the signs, we want the thunder and lightning of do this, but you have to come forward and say yes. And I think that was the thing, that was the edging lesson, where it's a
Mhm.
dance with the universe, not a manipulation of the universe. That was a
Mm.
long answer to your question. I do
And I
apologize.
love it. And I think, that thunder that you're talking about is actually the decision of saying, you know
Yep.
what? That's my decision. Because then all of these little signs and guidance and turn right and left and all of that, they're often so subtle,
So
aren't they?
subtle.
And you just have to learn how to listen to them
Yeah.
more and more. But of course, it helps when you have a big sign in front of you and it's telling you go right or left.
Yes.
But then, it's not always like that. So, if you think about your journey from that moment when you made this move from Canada to the UK to now, how would you say you developed your own language with the universe?
Mm. You ask very good questions. Um, I always say that the universe and I are very casual together. I have a certain amount of, I was raised by a mother who, she would say she had no problems complaining to God. That was her vocabulary. And that never, well, I can understand and appreciate that candid relationship that she had. That was never really my thing. I just always, there's a deep knowing, and that vocabulary shows up and that communication comes up when, mm, okay, so to backtrack, to kind of actually map that out a little bit. There was that pinnacle point of meeting my husband in that magical, I mean, like you could not get more aha moments. Like the word Michael even led me to Michael teachings where we met. It was like it was every single thing. He had children from another marriage and he turned to me and said, yeah, if my son had been a girl, we were going to call him Christina Ann, which is my full name. Like it was not, the universe left no stone unturned. When you experience that, and I hope even if you're hearing stories about that, then when all of a sudden you go, so that's what's possible when you find alignment. And that's just total alignment. That's you in that perfect dance of energy with the divine, your wholer self. You are showing up saying, I am not going to take less. than my whole self, my greatest potential. And then you bring that to the universe, and the universe comes back and says, yes, you know what? Let's play. Let's do it. Okay. When you have that fusion, I will say that, I finished after I met my husband, I remember being like, universe, like, how, once you crack this code, like, where do I go from here? And of course, then life, the universe went, oh, you want to see how far you can go from here? And literally, it was learning the opposite. So I got very, very stressed. We had two kids out of very, like, between, like, all on two under a year. We were living at my parents. Money became an issue. There was challenge after human issue after human issue. And I found myself postpartum depression, the whole bit, about 3 years of feeling so disconnected from who I knew I could be, that that became my vocabulary. It was like, how do I find my way back into alignment? And how do I find my way into connecting to that? And what does that look like from a practical sense? Because again, it's like what we were talking about before hitting record. I wasn't one to just dive into a spiritual community and be involved in, I would love to. I tried every religion under the sun, trying to find a place of belonging, but that wasn't my path. I knew my place of belonging was this. And that became my vocabulary. So this became my greatest friend and my greatest ally. This became the space where I went, how do I plug in? And that's like where my vocabulary then turned into, this is like electricity that flows through the walls everywhere. This is accessible to absolutely everyone. You have to figure out your way of plugging in. So I developed over time different ways of plugging in, because suddenly I had
Mm.
little kids that were running around all over the place. And I wasn't like, I'm going to go walk up a hill somewhere and be gone for
Yeah.
an hour or 2 hours
Mhm.
or a day. All of a sudden it became, I need to plug in like that. And then I started realizing that it was actually just the decision of plugging in, that I could actually just go, I know that's there. That's a sense of knowing there. So I call, I call upon it, and I insist that I plug in. So that was the trajectory, I suppose, of kind
Mhm.
of going, I know what's possible. I feel what's possible. I also feel what happens when I'm not in that space.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of validation. There was a lot of validation. What happened when I wasn't in that space? And it was not fun.
Mhm.
Life did not flow. When I wasn't in that plugged in state, ooh, it was not good. So it was the contrast that I learned the language through. And then all of a sudden it became this step by step. Then I need to make sure I find that point of alignment quickly and often. Did that answer the question?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I love when you said that I decided to find my way back to alignment,
Mm.
because it's almost like you knew, your soul knew that feeling and you just wanted to go back to it.
Mm.
And then just your decision to find different ways to connect with this energy is so beautiful, because in our human experience, we are going through so much, right? Because yes, we are soul, we're
Yep.
energy, but then we have to deal with this human stuff,
Yep.
which is okay. It was our choice. We
Yep.
came here to do that. But then how do we develop those practices and techniques? And we
Yep.
call it in so many different ways in order to make sure, yes, we live this daily life, we go and sleep and eat and move and all
Yep.
of that, but then at the same time, we stay connected with who we are. So when you say about, like, I found different ways to plug in, can you tell us about one or two of these ways?
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. Even just the statement of saying I'm plugging in, or I'll often just be like a hello type of thing. I love just saying hello to the universe as whatever way people see that. I always suggest is like just a quick hello. It's an acknowledgement. Where attention goes, energy flows. So the minute you give attention to that other part of yourself, you take a step aside from the human stuff. And the human stuff, it's an interesting juggling act, because we do, there's a lot of shoulds. A lot of people come to me and they'll be like, I know I need to plug in. I know I need to connect to that spot, but I just can't meditate. And you go, Well, there's a should. You know, it doesn't have to be a long meditation. I know people, I have people who will plug in just on their morning walk, or they'll go for a, they're at the gym and they're like on their treadmill and that's they're plugging in. It's creating the space that's yours. So that's why I'm always like, just start your day off by like saying I'm plugging in, or I'm saying hello to the universe, or how you doing? Like it's okay to actually make it as casual and as, because we're casual with our friends.
Mm.
Doesn't need to be this formal relationship, because
Yes.
actually that holds it over here. And a lot of times people have been told it has to be kept over here. But
Mm.
you are a soul. You are love. You are divine energy. That's who you are. So you got to let it in. So like, so there's saying hello, there's saying I'm plugging in. Um, Grounding is really important. Is all the human stuff. The biggest thing about human stuff is that it's a triggered nervous system. It, like you said, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world right now. 99% of us are in a triggered state of fear a good part of the time. So it's really important to learn how to regulate your nervous system, make sure you're breathing deeply, make sure that you're physically able to have the space to feel safe to let love in.
That's
Because
deep.
most
I,
people don't. Most
mm.
people, it's like, um, and I mean, actually, I won't even say most people, every person, because there will be times, I mean, I've been doing this work for years, and I will still tell you every once in a while, I'll be like, whoa, my nervous system's really acting up. Okay, well, I'm not going to be letting anything in if I'm in a triggered nervous system.
Yeah.
So, regulate your nervous system, because you can't manifest from a triggered nervous system. You can't let the universe flow through you from a triggered nervous system. It's not going to happen, because literally your brain is in red alert and it wants to be in control.
Mm. And then instead of creating this beautiful dance with our own energy and the positive energy in the universe, because there are so many different other types
Yep.
of energies, instead of attracting that, then what it happens is that positive energy in the universe and the love cannot like blend
Magnetize.
with
Exactly.
our own space, and it becomes almost like, well, like a combination of oil and water, which is
Absolutely.
like, what are
Abs-
we doing here?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then when it's not always easy, like you said, you are surrounded by so much information. It's not easy to always create that safe place to invite love, because we then see the distorted version of love
Yep.
around us so many times. But then when we know ourselves and when we invest that time to plug in, and I love your term, like how you're saying it, when we spend enough time to learn what does that mean to us, then things become just a little bit easier. So I know you mentioned about your experience of like going through parenthood and having to then find your way back to yourself and to your connection with the universe. Was it that moment when you chose to immerse into the journey of parenting, or conscious parenting coaching?
In a lot of ways, I part of my gap of understanding that connection was because of the shoulds of parenting. So with parenting, I thought there was this lovely box that I had to fill of schedules and making sure that I had well-behaved children and doing all of these things, which made me feel further and further from myself. So then all of a sudden, and I think my girls were about maybe 3 or 4, they were old enough to remember the moment, because they'll say, wow, we really appreciate I think you made that switch. Because all of a sudden I went, oh, actually, it's better to be happy than right. I actually don't need to, I need to actually take care of my spiritual self and show up as that. And I don't really care if everybody's messy. Like, who cares? Like, in the realm of things, why am I trying to control the people? So that was a journey of discovery for myself. And that was a good schooling that the universe set up there, because it was me actually breaking. That was when I started to really do a lot of the healing work of going, but what do I really believe? What, what are my, um, what am I taking from what I've been told, and what am I leaving behind? And so that was kind of the breaking apart period. So then, of course, anyone who now knows the term conscious parenting, Now everyone knows that that's what that is. But I always felt like I kind of did it kind of in this kind of cave somewhere. And then all of a sudden I got out of the cave and I was like, everyone's doing this. Okay. This is not, but I didn't have the comfort of not thinking that it was like, there was actually a movement. I didn't know that there was a movement. So yes, so parenting was this interesting transformation into that when all of, and then I started again having the validation that I would look at my kids and I would know that every time I was acting in alignment, they would listen better, they would understand me, we would have more fun, everything flowed differently. So there was this beautiful continual cycle of learning and validation that would occur. And then I had our son, and our son was born totally different because I was in a far more trusting space and I was really connecting to him spiritually. And from there, then I learned a deeper version of it too, of how that conscious family can look. That was then after, and it was after that, then I started coaching in that. Because I realized that no matter what, whichever, and it doesn't matter whether it's parenting, it doesn't matter if it's in work, it doesn't matter whatever human aspect of your life you're in, whatever role you're trying to play, as soon as you plug in, as soon as you integrate into who you really are and allow yourself to show up, and you have that little dance with the universe going on in the background, suddenly everything shifts. You have different conversations with people, you connect with different people, the workload changes so that it flows effortlessly. Now, of course, you have the outside noise, and I think it's important that we always cover, because right now the outside noise is very loud. I mean, like I'm talking about like the early 2000s when I was, becoming a parent. My daughters are now in their 20s. So that was a different world. We live in a world where the outside noise is so strong. There's a collective energy kind of vortex of fear that's encompassing, which means that it's not like, some people might be like, yeah, so then it's harder to actually find that. But the truth is it's actually more vital. It's more vital because now it's a time of actually plugging into your soul self, having that connection. And now we're moving more into it's fine to be showing light into your family, and it's fine to be shining light into your workplace, and it's fine to be showing up fully as a human. But now there's an extra layer of shining out light into the actual world. That when we're
Mhm.
actually radiating out as love and allowing that love to flow through us, we're actually transforming that fear, because fear and love cannot exist in the same space.
Mhm.
So there's an extra layer to things, which is kind of interesting. Sorry, I went on a
Mhm.
tangent.
No, and you know what, when you talk about like shining that light in the world, it comes in so many different ways
Yep.
in the projects that you do in businesses, if you have a job, yeah, if you have your own company. And that's so important. I love that you touched on this, that it's vital now. It's so important more than ever. And yes, I always say that this young generation now, my daughter is almost 8, and so she would look around, she would immediately understand what's AI, what's not AI, and stuff like
Yep.
that. And it's like it just shows how the human race is constantly changing. But then at the same time, what this tells us is that we are becoming much faster at understanding when something is fake, when
Yep.
it's not aligned. And so, if you look at the companies or coaches or people who are the front of their branding, for example, you want to see that this person is fully aligned with what they do and
Yes.
who they are. And
Yes.
honestly, I love it.
Yeah. I know. Well, and it's an interesting thing because I mean, um, we are headed into a time where, we've been hearing people talk about, oh, the patriarchy's crumbling and, the old ways of doing things. It's like, yeah, absolutely. It means that we actually have to fully align to ourselves because we are in a time where the patriarchy falling is giving space for who we really are to shine forth and actually guide the way. And it cannot feel like that if you're caught, if your nervous system's triggered and you're listening to all the fear narrative, you are going to be like, how can you say that? This doesn't feel like a PowerPoint at all. But you actually go, well, rewind it and actually know that your light is shining forth and you can send love everywhere.
Mm.
And but you have to be in alignment to yourself.
Mhm.
That's the number one step. You cannot negate away from the step-by-step process of making sure that you are in alignment to your magical self. And, some people go, well, I have to do all the healing in order to to get into that space. It's like, no, actually, plug in first. The healing that you need to do will rise to the surface and you will be told what you need to clear out. Regulate your nervous system. Feel
Mhm.
safe to be loved and to love, and the rest will follow.
Yes, because this journey of healing is ongoing. It
Ongoing.
never ends.
Yes. Yes. And you can get stuck in a space of feeling unworthy or not ready.
Mhm.
And you can get stuck just feeling like you don't have what it takes, that you have to clean things up. Where attention goes, energy flows. So if you're always sending your energy back to what needs to be healed, you can't plug in and step up. And now we live in a time where actually we don't have the luxury to take any more time to not step up. Everyone needs to step up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. And it's so important to talk about this so
Yeah,
that we all become more and more and more aware. And these are reminders for everyone who's watching this
absolutely.
video and to everyone who's talking about these subjects as well, of how important it is to constantly come back to who we are and
Mhm.
really connect with that energy, understand it. Because we may talk so often about being misunderstood by others, but do we understand ourselves
Ooh,
first?
beautifully said. Yes, absolutely. And it's funny because like even like one thing you had asked about different tools and things, but I find that whenever I'm in doubt, if I just put my hand on my heart and just give my heart a rub, you can always find that inner connection to yourself. You
Mhm,
always can take a shift away. And and that's really like this, it's as simple as that. But it's true. You just can't you get stuck in the mud. You're
mhm.
not actually doing that.
Yes, and our
Yeah,
heart is such a beautiful channel for us to connect
exactly.
with, to heal, to clear as well, so that we can receive information in a way that makes sense to us,
Exactly.
then
In
makes
our own
sense
language.
more and more. It's an exercise, it's a muscle. It's
Exactly.
actually a muscle, right?
Yes. Yes. Exactly. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's so beautiful. So I know, Christina, that you have a very deep connection with Archangel Michael.
Yes.
Why is that connection so important for you?
Hmm. That's an interesting, sorry. I can just, as soon as you say that, I kind of just like throw that out there to that kind of connection. And I kind of just feel like he's laughing. Um, but I would say, well, we have a long history, I suppose. So because of him leading to, and I say him lightly, um, because to me, and what I've learned to develop, and anyone listening to this, I think it's important to understand how I feel about what this looks like. Because I've had a number of people come up to me and be like, I don't understand. What is the archangels? What are the angels? What are all these layers? So for me, um, I look at every single being, us as humans, archangels, angels, guides, whoever you're dealing with. I see spiritual energy as source energy, and then it flows through different beings. Now, as soon as it starts to flow through a different being, I compare it to a cup of tea. It's literally like it becomes infused with your perceptions, your opinions, your experiences. And that energy, just like water turning to tea, transforms. So if I say Archangel Michael, some people might experience Archangel Michael differently with a different name, but they will still feel that cup of tea that's been infused over millennia with different experiences, different connections, and we've come to name that frequency, that energy, that cup of tea as Archangel Michael. So it's understanding the frequencies of individuals is actually an important thing to dive into, because you also go, well, what is my cup of tea? What is my infusion? That can be a lifetime of infusions, and various lifetimes of infusions. So you change each time, you develop each time, you deepen each time, the longer you steep in different experiences. So your energy is just as strong and can be as strong for other people as, say, an Archangel Michael frequency space. And this is where I take that. So when I say Archangel Michael, it is I plug into a certain frequency, much like the old telephone operator things. It's just like you just move to connect those connections. So over the years, yes, Archangel Michael led me to my husband in a fun, frivolous. He's very big on signs. He always can throw a good joke. Um, and a lot of people don't have that experience from him, but that's been my experience from him. And there is this camaraderie that I feel there because of how he led me to my husband, and he's always seemed to show up at various times. Now, in my work as an energy healer, Archangel Michael will always show up in an energy healing when if there's a tough cord that needs clearing, if there's something that's lingering around. I have felt Archangel Michael literally come in with a massive sword and just go, oh, enough of this, and just clear it out really fast. And I'm left being like, well, that was a little abrupt. You didn't really need to do it quite like that. So I have this camaraderie in there, which I don't, it's so because of that, there's always a feeling when you connect to your guides and not just the universe, because you plug into the universal force, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing, and you feel so much more of yourself. When you plug into your guides, you remember that you're not alone. And that's the difference. And that's why it's so important to me, is because it's like, yes, I can plug into the universal force, and some people might call it God, and some people might call it the universe, and some people might call it whatever they call it. And that feels so fulfilling, and it feels so whole, and I know who I am, and I know I'm in alignment. When I connect to my guides, that's when I go, what do you think about that? Like, what is that?
Mm.
And come on, give me a hand. Like, that's when you go in there. So
Oh,
yeah.
what a beautiful connection, and you've described it in such a beautiful way. And I love that you described your connection with Archangel Michael, but also you mentioned that, different people can have connections with other guides and it would manifest in a particular way. And I totally agree with you because there are moments in your life when you think, oh, I find myself in this course or event or connecting with someone, and I just know that this moment didn't just happen like out
Yes.
of nowhere. I was
Yes.
guided there. I was guided to connect with these
Yes.
people. It is nothing is a coincidence, and especially with these like significant moments in your life when you meet your partner, when you're guided to just travel to a place somewhere where you need to do some sort of clearing or healing. These are never coincidences, and the more we listen to that, the easier it is
Yes.
to see what's
Yes.
next. And it's just a collaboration. And I love that you mentioned the fact that, yeah, just as you connect and plug into this energy that comes from archangels and angels and guides, we also have this energy. That's why I always feel like it's a co-creation.
Yes.
Nobody is higher or lower or whatever.
No.
It's a dance. It just happens that we also chose to take a human form
Yep.
and live this lifetime.
Yep.
But yeah, it's so much that you can tune into energetically and go from there. And I love that. Okay, just this question came through. Clearly, it was meant to be here today.
Good. Yeah.
And I know that throughout the years, in your experience, Christina, you've worked in so many different ways. You've guided so many amazing people, and you've also written books. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Please tell us, what are you working on today? And to everyone who's watching this episode, you might find this episode immediately after we post it or years after we post it. So please make sure you check out the description of this video to see what is it that Christina is working on at that moment. But I would love for you to tell us, what is it that you are working on now when
Fantastic.
we're
Yes,
recording?
absolutely. Yes. Oh, I appreciate you asking that because it calls it into being. And I find that talking about this right now is really making me very, very excited. So I am working on combining all my exercises and all my client stories and making a very practical path for people to tap into who they really are. No fluff. and making sure that they know that they don't have to look a certain way or give up certain things in order to be walking their spiritual path. So I keep thinking, I was like, oh, maybe I should just like call it like meditating in blue jeans or something like that. Because I guess I'm like, I want to make sure that you know that you as yourself, that is who you came to be. And so it's going to be mapping everything through regulating your nervous system, connecting to your heart, releasing your shoulds, making sure that you are truly stepping forth as you, but it's going to be very practical with lots of checklists and lots of checking in and lots of exercises that you can do so that you're embodying it, because so often it's easy to get stuck in your head, and I want to make sure that you're not in your head. Because it doesn't serve anyone to be logically trying to process things. It takes so much longer. So yes, that is what I'm
It
working on.
sounds exciting and juicy because
It's going to be
as
so
you're
juicy.
talking about it, I'm going to have this and this and this. It's just absolutely incredible, and I cannot wait to like see when the book is out because it is going to be an absolutely fantastic tool for people to plug in.
That's right. That's right. It is going to be all about plugging in. Maybe I'll just call it that.
Yeah, yeah. Why not? Why not? Thank you so much, Christina, for your amazing, beautiful, magical presence here in this interview. Thank you to everyone who's watching this episode. If you're new to our channel, please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, let us know your thoughts, and make sure you check out the description to know how to connect with Christina and myself. Thanks again for watching. See you again soon.
Thank you
Bye.
so much, everyone. Bye.